Welcome back to another segment here on Gems Podcast. It's your girl, Miss Genesis Amaris Kemp, and with me today is Mark Collins. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about who Mark Collins is, and then we're going to dive into a powerful conversation. So if you're a note taker like me, grab your pen and your paper, or pull out your phone and start taking some notes because we're definitely going to be dropping some gems in this segment. So a little bit more about Mark Collins. So Mark Collins, you may see him as Mark, but he definitely has a lot in his background. He is the founder of Freedom for Life and author of the transformational leadership book, Life Mastery. Living life by design, not by default. He has been and seen hundreds of lives transformed through our Life Mastery suite of courses and has a singular passion to see people unleash as the hero they were created to be. On a personal note, he is a husband, father, business and life coach, and pastor. He has three adult children and three dogs, Gwen, Flynn, and Pebbles, that his wife and he treat like children. As we all know, fur babies are our babies, but they didn't come from us. So without further ado, I want to welcome the man behind it all, Mark Collins.
Thank you, Genesis. It's great being here.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for just sharing and holding space with me. And before we dive into the main part of the segment, I want to give the audience a chance to know you in a fun and personal manner. And we can do that by either doing a rapid fire 10 question game or an icebreaker. What are you in the mood for?
Let's do the 10 questions. I want to see how well I do.
Okay, y'all. We're playing rapid fire with Mark and Genesis. Do 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 do. Question numero uno. What is one word to describe you?
Passionate.
Question two. If you could trade places with anybody for 24 to 48 hours, who would you trade places with? Or remain yourself?
Nobody. I love my life.
I love it. Question three. In your bio, it says that you're a pastor. What made you get into the pastoral work?
Um, my own journey and wanting to help others on theirs.
Okay. Question four. What is your drink of choice? Coffee, tea, or something else?
Coffee.
Question five. Name one of the craziest things that you have done in your younger life, or like I like to say, BC, before Christ, whether you jumped out of a plane or something that, well, you did that, Mark?
No, I didn't do that one, but I came to California to become a rock star.
Oh. Question six. Have you met anyone in your life where some people may think is an idol, but you actually know them as a famous person before or after their fame?
Oh, wow. No, I don't know anybody famous other than me.
Question seven. If you had the opportunity to hop in a time machine and go back and correct one area of your life, what would it be?
Wow, that's a great question. You know, th- golly, that's a great question. I would say that I was in a martial arts class and dislocated my kneecap, and that's one rehab that I would love to not have to do.
Okay, I like that. Martial arts class and not injuring your knee. Okay, question eight. So, if money was no object, where would you be heading in the world?
The Maldives. It's a beautiful area in the Indian Ocean. I see it on videos and YouTube and all of that, but never been there yet.
Question nine. With having three adult children, what's one piece of parenting advice you would give to a new or seasoned parent?
Speak to them about their value and worth and who you see them created to be, and eventually they'll see it for themselves.
I like that, especially as a new and seasoned mom. And question 10, it is our pass or play question. And here are the rules. If you pass, our roles are reversed and you ask me a question. If you play, I ask one last question to wrap up rapid fire. So are you passing or playing?
I'm going to pass.
Okay. What is your question for me?
What is the biggest challenge that you've overcome that you're proudest for in your life?
Oh, I think the biggest challenge for me is having to one bury a parent so young. Today is actually the 4 year anniversary of my father's passing, and he passed at 64. And just knowing the relationship that I had with my father and us being literally two peas in the pod, that was a huge challenge for me. And then also navigating the unknowns of COVID during that time
Hmm.
because I was like, he did not pass from COVID, but just having to like deal with not having all the people that you wanted there because of COVID restrictions and etc.
Yeah.
was a challenge and it was part of the new norm. So
Yeah, that's a tough challenge. I'm sorry to hear about his passing, but excited to see that you've navigated it well.
thank you. And I started this show in honor of my dad and still going strong.
That's phenomenal. I'm glad to be on here. I'm honored now.
Thank you so much. And thank you for asking that question. So now that concludes rapid fire. So, audience, I hope you learned a little bit more about who Mark Collins is, personally and professionally, and that's just a tip of the iceberg. But I really want to dive into the work that he is doing today and how he's helping other people. So, one thing that I feel like in today's society we could all use is unpacking identity. And the reason why I want to talk about unpacking identity as well as your character is your calling, we're going to weave those together is because we're living in a time where social media is out there and everyone is on the gram or on the TikTok or on Snapchat and they're doing it for the likes. Whenever they're showing you what they want you to see, but behind closed doors, is that really the picture that they're truly painting? Or
Hmm.
what does your identity look like on the foreground as well as the background? Because I feel like that's an area that we could all use some help with. And if you weave in character in that, are we really being our true character on or off the screen? So let's talk
Yeah.
about identity, Mark, and from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I joke and I tell people that my wife doesn't let me have a tattoo, but if I did, my tattoo would be this: identity is everything. Because I really believe it is. Obviously, my background in Christianity and being a pastor, but beyond that, I believe that we're all created uniquely and that everybody has an identity that they were created with, but they also have the one they're living from. And the challenge with the one we're living from is it's our life, our past, our pain, our experiences, and the things that we've walked through that many times tell us who we are. And on the opposite side of that is you growing up either believing those or trying to disprove those. So if you're growing up in that place where your family was poor, my family was poor for sure. We were so poor that, Kmart tennis shoes, we had the step down version of that. In the military, they had a store on base that they would call the PX or BX. And this was a discount store for like the Kmart for the military base, but it was one step down from that. You'd have to step up to get to Kmart or Walmart or those kind of areas. So a lot of times we're dealing with what our past was and trying to disprove it. So we're trying to succeed it away, or we trying to income it away, or we try and relationship it away, or it's all those things that you're talking about, Instagram and TikTok, and look at my life and how amazing it is, right? And so we grab an identity from our outcomes. And what I tell the people I work with is your identity creates your outcomes. Your outcomes don't create your identity. And if your outcomes are creating your identity, then it's a horrible substitute for everything that you're created for.
I like that because I feel like when you know who you are, you won't fall victim of who they want you to be or what they want
Yeah.
you to be because sometimes people like to put labels on us. And whenever you're not so sure in who you are internally, externally, you're going to show up with a facade
Yeah.
and a mask trying to compensate for something you were never meant to truly be. And whether you're religious or not, and I'm non-denominational. Sometimes it says God already formed us in the image. He knew us before he placed us in our mother's womb. But for those of
Yeah.
you who are not religious, there was already destiny tied to your name. But unless you know what your purpose is and your calling, then you're going to be going through this journey of life trying to appease other people or maybe trying to appease yourself because people have always told you what you were, and then you just
Yeah.
on the bandwagon of it instead of taking a step back or grabbing an onion and peeling the layer back to ask yourself, who am I at the core? What makes me me? And why do I have what I have? And what can I do to change what I don't like about myself and change for me, not for other people?
Yeah, I love that. And the truth is, Genesis, we already know that. I believe, like with myself, growing up as a young person into adulthood, there was this thing on the inside that was telling me there's more than the life that I'm living. Growing up with a father who was domineering, and really in my own household, unlike you, we weren't two peas in a pod, but we were probably more alike than I wanted to be. But in that place, he was a man that I felt like I could never measure up to. And so you're trying to overcome some of those things. But there was this, what I call the person on the inside that was saying that there was more than what I was living, more than the actions I was taking, more than those negative thoughts and those things that, the voice that plays in your head when you hoping you can succeed, but you don't know, or you're struggling in school or you're struggling in relationships. And there's this voice telling you that you're a failure, that you're blowing or whatever. I believe that everybody has that innate voice on the inside that says there's more. And what I find that's really fascinating, Genesis, it's not just those of us who are striving for better, striving for greater in our lives, maybe wanting to start a podcast like you did, or wanting to have a business or a good job, or whatever that level of success is that we have a dream of. But it's interesting because I work with people as well who are on the opposite side, who are using, their money, their income, their position, their title, their possessions to tell them who they are. And they get to the top of that mountain and they find out that they're still left empty.
Yes.
It's a poor substitute from being who you are. And so for me, my work and my passion is, which is the word I use, right? The first question you asked me, my passion is for people to really what I call unlock their hero in hiding. I tell people my joy and my passion is to help you to unlock and unleash your hero in hiding in your business, your job, your relationships, and life. I believe everybody has a hero on the inside, that life that is just me being lived out. It's that thing that I know I'm made for. I think everybody has that. And when we're not living that out because we're living with the world standards or what we think is the norm that we're supposed to live, we have this voice on the inside, whether we're listening to it or not, that says, there's more than where I'm at. There's more that I can have. There's more that I can accomplish. There's more that I am than what I'm really living out.
Yes, and I like that you said everyone has that inner voice, and some may say it's that intuition or it's that this.
Yeah.
But what happens whenever these individuals they hear the voice, but they silence it because they're afraid to go to the next step, or they're afraid that their character may show up, but that character may not
Hmm.
align with that ego that they have. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't speak for everyone, but the pattern that I've seen is this pattern that I lived, which was really trying to figure it out. And for me, it started with personal development. And even as a teenager, I would read biographies of successful people and just believe that, that's a life that I could have. Not that I wanted to imitate them or, have whatever, the vocation, the job, the career that they did, but just that feeling of, starting from nothing and becoming something and really becoming, what I call living out that maximized life that they had. I wanted to have that for myself. And so it was reading biographies and then personal development back in the day. And he's still successful today, a guy named Tony Robbins, who is huge in personal development. He's kind of like the grandfather of much of the work that's being done today. And I'd read books and I'd have the personal development courses. And, it was those things where you'd have a little bit of success and you'd create these habits and find some change and some incremental increase in the things you were doing, the positive things you're doing, the positive thoughts that you're having. And after a while, you forget for a day or you forget your favorite mantra, your affirmation, and then all of a sudden you go back down to who you used to be. Right? You rise and fall to the level of the person that you're created to be. I apologize if you can hear my dogs barking in the background.
No worries. This is all home and we like to keep it very real around here. And we are gonna have noise sometimes, y'all, but the content is what's important. So I like the fact that you talked about that and you gave your perspective because your perspective may be somebody else's perspective or may help them, understand a bit more because I feel like sometimes, and I'm gonna use younger people because I'm a millennial. I feel like in this day and age, sometimes people are just begging to be liked, begging to be seen, begging to be heard. And whenever you mention your characters calling, how many times do we answer the call? We answer a text message nowadays faster than we answer a phone call nowadays. Everyone is on their phone twiddling their thumbs, but whenever a call comes, they're like, "Oh, I'll call them back." But it's easier to take a text message. But what happens when your life is calling you and your character
Mm,
is on the line? Because let's be real, we all have a certain number of days to live here on earth. We may not know
yeah,
what those days are, but you may be wasting time accepting text messages from other people who are not going to give you the substantial or the substance that you need for the call that is inside of you where the alarms are going off and it's trying to get your attention. But it's not until life circumstances bring you to your knees that you want to pick up that call. But is it
yeah.
too late to hear that call is really for you? When is a sense of urgency going to go off with character building so we can embrace the uniqueness and the individuality of each one of us? And how do we really help people see that in today's society when everything is trying to tell them a vision of who they
Yeah,
and not their vision?
that's good. And I think the thing is everybody there is this innate calling on people's life and there's a chapter in my book, the book Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default. It's also a lesson in my course and the title gives the whole lesson away and it's your character's your calling. And that is a chapter and a lesson that speaks directly to the fact that a lot of times we look for that title, we look for that income level, we look for that position. You know, I'm a manager now or a supervisor, so I'm somebody of importance, or I'm a whatever. I came to California to become a rock star. It didn't really work out that way. Got some great things, including a wife and a family and all the things I'm doing now. But that particular goal didn't actually come to pass. But sometimes we're looking for that thing so that we show that we're a person of worth and value, right? Because we, like you talked about, I mean, it's so astute with it's the people on Instagram, it's the people on TV, it's the people we see in media that, you know, I'm important because I'm one of those, and I'm not important until I am. And what I tell the people that I work with is that your character is your calling. It comes back to identity, right? I tell them you're the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. You're not the question to be figured out. You don't have to wait until you have a title to be somebody of worth and value. You actually have the worth and value before you do anything. We can unpack it scripturally because I'm a pastor, but the truth is that there's an innate value in every single person that is them lived out. It's never your accomplishment that matters, but who you are in the midst of your accomplishment. You know it because we see people of success all the time who they've had wonderful success in something, whatever, in business or in art, you know, artistic endeavor. They're a musician, they're an actor, there's this person or that person, people maybe in our own lives, and then their life becomes a disaster. So the thing is that success doesn't overcome character, but character really accentuates and accelerates your success. And in that place, it really isn't a title, right? Again, your outcomes determining who you are or your identity determining your outcomes. It's understanding when I start to unpack and uncover who I'm created to be, I stop becoming an imitation of somebody else and I start to see that there's value and worth and character in me that I can live out. And in that place, it's the difference really, Genesis, between success and fulfillment. I talk to people all the time and even clients I work with who have reached out for success and couldn't find fulfillment. The goal is really fulfillment. And really what that is you really living from that place that you were created for. Like maybe you with your podcast or somebody out there who's singing, where you just know when you're doing it that this is me on the inside. This is just my passion being lived out, this thing that I'm created for this. This is really me. It's that kind of life. It's not success so that I can have the accolades, have the diploma on the wall, have the trophy on the shelf, but it's saying that what's the me thing? The people I work with, I tell them there's an impact in the world that has your name on it. And our goal in the work that we do is first to understand who you're created to be so you can have that impact in the world because it's in that place. There's no substitute for it. The substitutes are success and money and those things. And you see the outcomes in people's lives when that's all they have. But the people who are living out their passion, they're not all millionaires. They're not all world famous. They're not all people that other people would know, but they know that this is my life that I'm living out and it's exactly who I'm created to be. That's the goal that we work with.
I absolutely love everything you said and spoke about because it is so true. And as you were talking about it, a image popped up in my head and it reminded me of the mechanics. What's in your toolbox? What
Yeah,
tools do you have internally that can allow you to accentuate for you to create or you to dream big? Like, what is it that people call you for? Where are you a SME at, a subject matter
yeah,
expert at? What causes you to glow and light up and bring that smile on your face where nothing is forced? Like, what are in your hands that you can make and create? What can
yeah,
release out of your mouth if you're a singer or whatnot? What is your personal ministry where you could impart into the world, and that impartation is going to be so impactful that that impact is going to be legacy for you and future generations to come because you're paving the way and you're doing something that comes so naturally to you and you're not forcing anything. So as you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, it's just like a toolbox. Like, but the toolbox is
yeah,
internally. Like, what do we have going on inside of us that we could pull out? And where do we need to take that still small seed and nourish it
yeah,
for the nourishment, for it to grow, for it to thrive, and etc. And that's all within ourselves. That's if we just stop for a minute and take time to limit the distractions and do the work inwardly, we will see what will manifest ex outwardly or externally in a sense. But that
yeah,
comes whenever you take time with you and love yourself unconditionally to really hear that deep calling or that faint calling, because sometimes it may not always be loud, it may be faint.
mm, yeah. And a lot of times not right because again, we're looking at what everybody else says success looks like, achievement looks like, character and outcome looks like. And I love what you talked about because there's a couple of tools that we use to really start to unpack foundation. For us, identity is foundational to everything we do. If you don't start with identity, then everything else is going to be a substitute for it. My experiences, the outcomes, all the things that we had talked about. And so we kind of unpack what the world is saying and what in many cases we think is just the only way to live. And we start with the foundation of identity. We have our people create an I am statement, right? Who you are apart from your outcomes, your character, your worth, your value, all those things that you talked about. Even those tool sets, as you said, the toolbox with all of the tools in it. What are the things that make you unique? Not your outcomes. Everybody has those, and you'll have those as well. But when they stop becoming a substitute is when you start seeing that they're coming from who you're created to be. They're not a substitute for it. And the second tool we use is the one that you reminded me of with what you were saying, and that's we invite them to create a celebration list. I've created 100 but I tell them, just create 20. And the celebration list is really it's the answer to this question. What do you love about you? And in that place, it's really starting to understand that you are a person of worth and value. You have value before you do things. Your value doesn't come from what you do, it comes from who you are. And in that place, I'm not sure in your life, Genesis, but a lot of the people, and including myself, that I know, you give them a mirror and you say, "What do you see?" A lot of times we see what we're missing, what we don't like, what we're short of, what we don't have, right? Instead of the things that we celebrate. And in that celebration list, what we try and do is the things that you're talking about, start to understand value. You're worth being celebrated and you're worth being valued. If you don't celebrate yourself, then you'll never be able to receive fully and completely celebration from others. But when you start to celebrate yourself, as a spiritual discipline, you can also understand that what I celebrate in me, I celebrate in the person, or in my case, the God who created me. But apart from all the spiritual, when I start to celebrate me, I start to see value in me. I start to see the things I'm doing well in the person that I am versus the things I'm lacking in the person that I'm not. And in that place, all of a sudden, that man or woman, the one that you're created to be, the one that's worth celebrating, starts to show up more in your job or in your business, at your school, in your academics, in your relationships, when you start to focus on the things that you are and the person that you are, you start to give yourself not just permission, but kind of that fuel and that excitement and that passion to start to live that out.
I love that. And when you were talking about the mirror, I forgot about the mirror check. But when you said the mirror, it's almost like this one course I took where it says every day you look yourself in the mirror, just like every day you go to your fridge. But start
Hmm.
writing things down on a sticky note and placing them on the places you see every day, like the mirror or the fridge, and start reminding yourself on all the positive qualities you have and that positive self-talk. Because when you start practicing that positive self-talk, those affirmations, those gratitudes, you're fueling your body with the positivity and the fuel to boost you up versus
Yeah.
the negative self-talk that comes in to steal, kill, and destroy who you are. So in order to
Yeah.
take away the negativity, we must introduce a positivity so we could start to debunk all of the negative things that we have said about ourselves or other people have said about us. So they no longer have root and they no longer have control or value on who we are. And when you strip that away and you break that down, you could really start to answer your calling. You could really start to have clarity and conciseness with your identity in a sense. And then you could hear clearly. And when you hear clearly, it also gives you a different vantage point to see who's in your circle. Are those people going
Hmm.
the same wavelength that you're going? And is it time for you to say, I love you, but I'm going to love you from a balcony because I'm going in a different direction of my life?
Hmm.
Because sometimes you can't always hang out with certain people whenever you're being called to a new elevation. Yes, you love them, and you're not saying you're better than him or her. You're just saying, I'm going through a season in my life where I need to get better for myself in order to thrive
Yeah.
and survive.
That's a big word. There's a lot there. I love what you're talking about. Yep. We have a three-step transformational strategy of mastering your thoughts, your words, and your actions. What I tell people is who you think you are, you'll become. And so everything starts with your thoughts, right? And it's like you talked about, it's those positive affirmations that you're using, but it's for us not really just using generic ones. So, I am a man of power, I am a person of strength, or whatever the thing is that you want to use, but really having them aligning with your identity because in that place you can't deny who you are. So when you start to, as we talked about, unpack an I am statement, understanding who you are, and you start to use those as affirmations, well, then when your thoughts align with it, you start to see that man or that woman actually start to show up in your business, in your job, with your vocation, with your family, with relationships, and in that place you're able to live it out. And of course, we could talk about mastering your words and your actions as well, and how you empower yourself by the things you say, not just affirming who you believe you are, but really giving yourself instructions on living it out. So in those places where, Genesis, you're saying, not you and specifically, but as a person, you're saying negative things about yourself. It's not just things that you're projecting out and letting people know about. It's things you're telling yourself about it. So when you think that you're, I'm so stupid, or I can't believe I did that, or I'm so horrible, whatever the things you're using, you're actually empowering your brain to live them out. But when you use words like, I'm the answer to the circumstance I'm walking into, I'm capable of finding solutions in every challenge that comes up. Now, all of a sudden, you're giving yourself marching orders towards your success and, of course, what we call life mastery. And the second thing I love about what you had been talking about was that balcony idea, right? Of me being able to love you from afar, not necessarily giving you insight into who I am or the ability to speak into my life. A lot of times in relationship, we have people that we love, but that aren't really necessarily people that are empowering. I talk about disempowering or empowering relationships, and a disempowering one is where people are trying to limit you or hold you back from what you believe is the truth of who you can become because of who they believe you were or because they're projecting on you who they want you to be. And in that place, you're so wise in saying it that sometimes you need to limit your time and access or accessibility to people who aren't really bringing out the best in you. What I tell people is you have circles of relationships. The inner circle is the one that's closest to me. And so for me as a person of faith, that inner circle is me and God. I'm a person of faith and I believe in God. The second circle is really me and my wife. She's the second closest relationship, and she has most access, most time, right? All those things that we have. Well, in relationships, the farther they go out in the circles, the less time they have with you. And sometimes you need to really make the hard choice of understanding that if I really want to get to where I want to be and become the person I believe I'm created to be, sometimes I need to limit the access of people who are really trying to intentionally or unintentionally hold me back from those things that I desire. It doesn't mean they don't have value. It doesn't mean they're not important people in my life. It just means that I have a value statement that says that the value I place on myself, if you're not able to place that same value on me, if you're not able to engage in a relationship that's equally healthy for both of us, then maybe we don't want to spend as much time. And so in that place, you can limit the access from people who are maybe not giving you those abilities to live the life you're called to. And in that place, really start to find yourself launched and unleashed in those things, because one thing is holding yourself back is your own thoughts, words, and actions, but sometimes it's the people around you.
Wow, that's so profound. And I love how, just dialing back to what you just said, it's your relationship with you and God, then it's your relationship with you and your wife, and then those who are outside of that as you begin to go further out. And how many times do we see that other people prioritize their other relationships before their relationship with God, and then they wonder why they're struggling in the level of faith, or they're not feeling like they're
Yeah.
able to commune with God or whatnot. And not to be religious here, because some of you who are listening may not believe the same amount of faith that we believe in, or whatever the case may be. But whatever your relationship is with your creator or higher power, you may start to see some resemblance here. So it goes to show that what we prioritize and what we set precedence to is going to shape how we see things outwardly as well as inwardly,
Yeah.
because sometimes things can get skewed because of our level of priorities. And then whenever we are dialing back, you're like, man, I don't feel like I have enough time for this, that, and the other. But in actuality, what are you allowing to take your time? Where are you setting up those
Yeah.
boundaries, and etc.? And if we just pause and do some reflection and retrospection, then we will see how we need to better align certain things in our life in order to get the outcomes that we desire.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of a Genesis, I mean, apart from the God conversation, is really relationships with other people and giving yourself enough value, believing enough value in yourself to have that expectation from others. Sometimes we limit ourselves because we don't expect a value statement or a value relationship, right? And so in life, a healthy relationship is me investing everything I have to the relationship, allowing you to be you and me to be me, and this belief system, this idea that I'm investing everything I have into it and I'm inviting you to do the same. And in that place, that's where healthy relationship happens. But in a place where I'm trying to invest and empower and unleash and be a part of that relationship in a way that brings health and well-being and, increase in our lives, and you're not, somebody's going to need to change. Either I'm going to have to dial back my belief system and the things I invest, or you're going to have to increase yours. And in that place, it's healthy to say, I love you, but you're not healthy for me at the level of relationship we have. And so we're going to need to manage it in a way where I can still find the value and the worth that I have. Because at the end of the day,
Mhm.
you are worth having quality relationships. You're worth having healthy environments and people around you that see the truth and the belief in who you are just as much as you do for yourself. And it's wisdom that says when those things aren't taking place and I'm investing in it and giving all I can to it, but you're not, well, maybe that lets you know the level of relationship you should have so that you can still be the person you're created to be, not be held back by the limitations of others that are around you.
Yes, I love all of that, Mark, and thank you so much for going in depth there. And it also stems from the thoughts, like our thought process. Why do we think a certain way, and what are some of the paradigms that led us to think that way? So
Yeah.
all of that is going to be transformational whenever you really get to sit with your thoughts and understand them. And sometimes, like, we're all human and we're going to make mistakes and everything's not
Yeah.
going to go how we plan. But when we take time to get by ourselves and get alone, then we start to see how things can begin to work out in our good once we work on ourselves. Then we see how our relationships improve, how our health improves,
Yeah.
how everything holistically improves whenever we take some accountability of our thoughts, our thinking. Why are we thinking a certain way? How is that making us feel? How is it making those in connection with us feel? So, this has been such a powerful conversation so far. And I just can't wait to see what else is on the horizon for you. But we don't want to give all your secret gems right now to the gemsters because they definitely need to follow you. So I want to jump into the CTA. But before I do, I also want to throw you an audible. So let me reverse it. And I want to throw you an audible, Mark, and ask you, is there something that I have not asked you so far in the segment that you would like to share with the gemsters to tie everything together before we jump into the CTA?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about identity, we've talked about your thoughts, words, and actions and quality relationships. The one thing I would tell people is the secret sauce to your success. For me, I believe we talked about I believe that there was more for my life than the person that was showing up. And in that place, I was looking for it in programs and courses and books and didn't find anything to bring transformation, but a lot of them that brought change and incremental increase. So in that place, I created a transformational course called Life Mastery. But here was the one thing that I did correct 100% of the time. It was refusing to give up on myself. At the end of the day, the success in you being able to find the transformation you're looking for, become the person that you believe you're created to be, really comes down to you being willing to bet on yourself one more time. The people that are watching or listening here, I'm assuming, are a lot like myself, where this may have not been the first conversation they've had. They've read books, they've talked to coaches, they've tried courses and things like that, and maybe it hasn't worked out for you. Maybe you found things that just brought habits, but they really didn't bring freedom. And in that place, you gave up on those things because they didn't bring the thing you desired. And that's no harm or foul in that. But the challenge is that many times we'll give up steps before the success we're supposed to have. So the secret to that success that you can have really beyond the tangible tools that we've talked about and strategies is you being willing to say, I am going to bet on myself one more time. I'm not going to give up until the person I believe I'm supposed to be, that I'm created to be, that I believe I can be, till I find the tools for that person to show up. It's in that place that you can become the person that you're created to be. If you refuse to give up on yourself, that is the one thing that I can't provide for you, that of course you can't provide for them either. Genesis is that unwillingness to give up, that tenaciousness in saying, I will not give up until I see the man or woman that I'm created to be actually show up.
I love that. And I don't know why, when you were saying the man in the mirror, all of a sudden MJ dropped in my head. I'm looking for the man in the mirror.
There you go. Yeah,
Oh my
that's a
gosh.
great one. That's a great one for sure.
That is amazing. And yes, jumpsters, do not give up on yourself. If we're so big in betting on other people, why don't we bet on ourselves and give ourselves the amount of credit that we give other people? At the end of the day, we are our biggest assets and we have so many things to be grateful and thankful for. If we would just start to look at what's in our own toolbox, what resources we have, and praise ourselves first and lift yourself up. And if you're still not catching it, just think about if you've ever flown on an airplane, what is that one line safety sentence that they always say? Put on your own mask first before you assist others. And it's because if we don't take accountability for ourselves and do
Yeah,
something for us, we're not going to be good for those who will be depending on us. So take accountability for yourself, be your own cheerleader, and see yourself as an asset, not a liability. So now we're going to jump into,
absolutely. I love that. I love that because can I just say really
yes.
quickly, there was a book I read years ago. I remember some of the concepts in the book, but I always will remember the title because the title was one of the most perfect titles I ever heard. And it is exactly what you talked about with the airline or being in an airplane. The title of the book was The Best Gift I Can Give You Is a Healthy Me. And when you're healthy, when you're living the life that you're created for, everyone around you is blessed because of it. So, no, I just wanted to add that that was wonderful that you'd said that.
That's a good gem. See, dropping gems for the gemsters. So now we're going to jump into the CTA, y'all. What is that? It's the call to action. It's where Mark is going to share how you can connect with him, how you could become part of his community, and anything else that he's going to give for you to grab. So get your phone ready, get that piece of paper and pen out, and take some notes here.
Well, I try and be a one-stop shop. So the one location you can find me at is my website, which is freedom-4-life.net. It's freedom-4-life.net. You can sign up for the course there, Life Mastery. But one of the things I really love to point people to is I have an ebook version of my book. You can get it as a physical copy on Amazon because everything is available on Amazon, of course. But if you want an ebook version that you can take on any device that you have, phone, tablet, computer, you can get the ebook version on my website as well. The book, of course, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, not by Default. And if you want to reach out to me for any questions that you may have, you can reach me at Mark, M-A-R-K, at freedom-4-life.net.
And there you have it, folks. You just heard Mark Collins. All of his contact information will be in our show notes. So all you have to do is scroll on down and tap in with Mark. And for those of you who are new to the GEMS community, this podcast is available on 40 plus audio platforms. So anywhere podcasts are found, GEMS with Genesis Amaris Kemp is there. If you're interested in seeing our beautiful faces, go on over to YouTube and type Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp, and you'll find the video to this recording. And until next time, signing out with peace, love, and lots of blessings. Remember, you're an asset, not a liability. You were created on purpose for a purpose, and you only live once. So live your best life now and write that legacy so other people could follow suit.